Have you ever felt offended or hurt by someone else's words or actions? Do you wonder how you can handle situations effectively without getting emotionally affected? In this video, we will explore how we can handle insulting situations in our daily lives, through valuable historical teachings and techniques. We encourage you to reflect on how you react to these external events, and how you can turn these experiences into opportunities to grow and evolve, instead of letting them defeat you. Are you ready to learn how to handle insulting situations with confidence and serenity? Many times, we find ourselves frustrated because our expectations are not met, but philosophers force themselves to accept the world as it is and expect things to go naturally. As the philosopher Marcus Aurelius tells us, Stoics don't let themselves be surprised, but prepare. In this video we are going to look at how we can apply this Stoic attitude to our lives to better handle frustration and dissatisfaction. We are going to discuss how to handle our emotions when we encounter people who are shameless, difficult, or untrustworthy. It is important to remember that we cannot demand that people with these characteristics do not exist in the world. Instead, we must accept that these people exist and try to understand how to deal with them effectively. A useful technique is to ask ourselves immediately, what is the quality that nature has given us to deal with any offense? This can help us keep a broader perspective and manage our emotions more appropriately. Also, remember that these people exist and that it is impossible to avoid them, which will allow us to be kinder and more understanding with them. To handle discourteous people, there is kindness. Emperor Marcus Aurelius understood that, although we wish the world to be free of rude or impolite people, we know that they exist and are part of reality. Therefore, we should not be surprised when we encounter some of them, and that this has to do with negative visualization. Philosophers prepare in advance for negative scenarios that may occur, as they consider that what really hurts is not being prepared for them. Serenity helps us to understand that when we are prepared for something, it will not affect us as much when it happens. If we prepare ourselves to understand that there are rude or disrespectful people in the world, we will know how to deal with them appropriately. Epictetus emphasizes that if someone offends us and we feel offended, that person becomes our master and we become his slaves. For example, if someone tries to take control of our body, we immediately react and get upset. But why then do we often tolerate that another person, even a stranger, takes control of our mind by allowing his insults to disturb us? The key here is to have control of our mind, and to achieve this we must avoid desiring things that depend on other people. According to Epictetus, if we fail to maintain control of our mind and allow others to offend us, we become slaves of those people. If someone says something unpleasant about us, we can become bitter for hours, days, months, and even years, and every time we remember that event, we will put ourselves back into a negative emotional state. Epictetus refers to this as being enslaved, since that person has become our master and controls our emotions and our state of mind. It is important to free ourselves from offenses that someone has said to us, because if we remember that offense, we put ourselves back into negative mode and that person has great power over us. But what things can we control and what can we not control? How can we handle them? If someone behaves rudely towards you, that is out of your control, but you have total freedom to choose how to respond. It is important to learn how to handle these situations, and to see how we can free ourselves from that offense and stop giving that person power over our mind and emotions. In other words, you have no control over what comes from the outside, but you do have control over your inner emotions. In every situation where someone behaves rudely toward you, you must remember that none of it is your fault or responsibility. However, you do have the option to respond differently. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of external forces or feeling unfortunate, you can see it as an opportunity to exercise your discernment and determination. You can use that offense as a way to exercise your self-control and become stronger, more virtuous, and a better person. Instead of being affected by the offenses of others, you can use them for your personal benefit. Philosophers compare this to a mighty fire, which absorbs whatever is thrown at it and grows bigger, as opposed to a small flame that is extinguished by whatever is thrown at it. By seeing offenses as an opportunity to strengthen and evolve, we become that mighty fire. It is important to remember that no one can offend us without our consent, and that what really hurts us is not rude or aggressive people, but our opinion that they are hurting us. Instead of getting caught up in the initial emotion, try to take a moment to reflect. Once you give yourself time to process what happened, it will be easier to control your reactions. As Epictetus mentions, the important thing is not to react immediately, but to give yourself space to process the situation. We have the power to change our mind at any time. Often, we are offended by insignificant things, and in many cases, the people who offend us do not do it with intention. Many times people act without thinking of the consequences, but we find a reason to be offended. Offenses really depend on our opinion. A word or action can be interpreted in different ways, and it will not offend us if we do not allow it. How we interpret the words of others has a big impact on how we feel. For example, if a friend says a word to us, we may interpret it as an expression of affection, while if someone angry with us says the same word to us, we may interpret it as an offense. To prepare ourselves for these situations, we can follow Epictetus' advice, and remember that we cannot control what others say or do, but we can control how we will react to it. It is important to keep in mind that our interpretation of others' actions is what really hurts us. It is important to choose to prepare for these situations and remember that we always have the power of how we react. Remember that causing harm to others only causes suffering to ourselves. We must practice self-reflection and the repetition of positive affirmations to strengthen our mind, and avoid being affected by the actions of others. For philosophers, when someone offends us, that action comes from their lack of wisdom. Stoics believe that all human beings seek to improve their lives and that of society, but sometimes they do so in the wrong way. It is important to have compassion and understand that they do not know what they are doing. In addition, we must remember that the main harm is done to ourselves by allowing ourselves to be affected by the actions of others. Therefore, we must work on increasing our own wisdom so that we can better handle situations and not allow ourselves to be affected by them. Understanding that the true source of pain is our own opinion, not the actions of others, is key to freeing ourselves from anger and resentment. Epictetus teaches us that we should have compassion for those who do wrong because they are blinded by their own ego. It is important to remember that we alone are responsible for our own conscience and soul, so we should avoid becoming angry, indignant, or offending others. It is essential to cultivate wisdom and compassion to achieve true inner freedom. Let us remember that the ego is not our essence, it is not me. The ego is a ballast that we carry, and it is what makes us react negatively to the comments or actions of others. It is a lower part of ourselves, which is concerned about the opinion that the rest of the world has about us. It is important to realize that people who try to offend us are also governed by their ego, and cannot see reality objectively. It is important to remember that confusion of mind is an inevitable part of the human condition, and we must forgive others for their mistakes. Stoics emphasize the importance of seeing reality as it is, and understand that wisdom is a quality that few possess. Instead of getting angry at others for their mistakes, we should be patient and understanding of the human condition. Instead of falling into the trap of returning offense, we should strive to be better people and not fall into the same pattern of behavior. The best revenge is to be superior to our enemies through our wisdom and virtue. It is important to remember that we all make mistakes, and there is still good in each of us. Even if we have the power to punish those who offend us, we should strive to forgive and show empathy. Marcus Aurelius, a powerful leader, chose this path over revenge. Although it may seem difficult to forgive, we must believe in the ability to do so and work toward it. Forgiveness is a valuable skill that can be difficult to achieve, but has a great impact on our lives. The fact that even the world's most powerful emperor, Marcus Aurelius, understood the importance of forgiveness and tried to show it to the world is a reminder of its importance. It is important to remember that forgiveness does not mean justifying a harmful action, but simply freeing ourselves from resentment and anger towards that person, and allowing us to continue our lives in a positive way. Instead of allowing the ego to feel offended, we should try to free ourselves from these inner beliefs and find peace in our true self. Our soul and consciousness are our responsibility. It is important to make sure that our actions do not cause harm to ourselves. We must be humble, good, honest, respectable, and fulfill our obligations. Philosophy teaches us to be good, pious, to help others, and to be aware that life is short, and the only fruit of our existence is to have a conscience and to have been useful to the community. It is important to remember that the power of serenity and happiness does not depend on the actions of others, but on our ability to control our inner thoughts and actions. Therefore, we must work on our inner speech to become people who are not easily offended, and who do not cause harm to others.